Hello and welcome to Catholic Moments. And now, here's your host and my mom, Lisa Hendey.
Our guest on today's episode of Catholic Moments as we begin the new year is lifelong Catholic author and founder of the Catholic Servant Leadership Movement, Tim Warneka. Hi, Tim. How are you today?
Hi. Good, Lisa. How are you today?
Good. I'm so happy to have you as a guest on our show, especially as we begin the new year, because I'm very interested in the work that you're doing and how it can impact on the year that we have lying ahead of us, and holds great promise, I think, for making our lives much better. So I'd like to ask you, before we get started and talking about your writing and your work, to just kind of briefly introduce yourself and your family.
Well, I'm a lifelong Catholic. I lived in Northeast Ohio most of my life, and I have my wife teaches first grade at a local Catholic school where my two kids attend, and my son is now 13 and my daughter's 10, and keep really busy. I'm a clinical counselor by training, and so I have a small private practice, and then I spend some time traveling around the country talking to a lot of different people on Catholic servant leadership.
Great.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'm kind of curious now. I've read your bio myself, but I'd like to have you kind of tell our listening audience how you transitioned from your studies into the field that you're doing right now.
Oh, this is a great question, because I ask myself that too a lot of times. But what I was doing, I was working in mental health, and I began to incorporate some Aikido practices, the martial art of Aikido practices, into some of the family therapy that I was doing. And it worked really well in the family therapy, and some of the parents came and said, this stuff works really well. Could it work at work? And I said, sure, let's try it at work. And so I went into their work, and I began to do, what I found out was organizational coaching and consulting, and doing leadership training, using some of the basic principles around and good communication skills and those kind of things. And so I wrote a book on leadership. And then as I did organizational consulting for a couple of years, and I started to really hear a real hungering from people around integrating leadership and spirituality, and had a lot of great conversations with people around the country around Catholicism in particular, about how Catholic fits into leadership, and sat down and wrote this Catholic Servant Leadership, and really has kind of taken off from there.
Tim, I'm familiar with Aikido because my son keeps begging me to do it. He's a fencer, and he wants more lessons in his life and wants to do Aikido. But for those who aren't familiar with that particular martial art, can you tell them a little bit more about some of the finer points of Aikido?
Sure. Aikido, the title Aikido translates as the art of peace. And so what it is it's a martial art that is dedicated to nonviolence and harmony. And so there's an explicit kind of ethical imperative in Aikido that says it's our job to take care of people who are attacking us. Mm-hmm. Which is very, very different than what people think of as kind of martial arts of destruction and hurting people and those kind of things. And Aikido really talks about it's not hurting people that's the idea, but it's really about recognizing that somebody who's going to hurt me is not doing well, is out of balance, is not maybe not mentally stable, and so I need to take kind of the ethical high road and protect that person as well as protect myself.
So how does that translate into everyday Mary or Joe Catholic out there in the pew, how we can kind of take on a worldview of life that we're each a Catholic leader, and some of those principles translating into how we should be living our day-to-day lives?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the dilemma in the typical culture, the broader culture that we live in, certainly I think 2008 is going to go down as the year of failed leadership at so many levels, financially, in government, in 1,000 different places. And one of the reasons that the leadership failed is because many secular leaders get into a place where I'm the only person who's important, and it's just about me, and I need to get what I get, and too bad for everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so that perspective trickles down to us everyday Catholics. And holding a Catholic perspective of leadership is saying, I'm important and my needs are important, and so are other people. And so whether I'm a parent at home, or I'm leading in the workplace, or I'm working at a volunteer place, at a food bank or wherever, as a Catholic, one of the things that I can do is really begin to pay attention to people, to listen to people, to hear what people are wanting, so that I can lead them even more effectively.
You know, I know that in reading the first sections of your book that you talk a lot about the parallels between a loving relationship being one that fosters strength and compassion translating into empowering people. So this is really not just, going down and, handing somebody $1 while they're standing on the corner, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us, I guess I'm just looking for how I can, in a practical sense, what are some ways that I can teach my family to employ Catholic servant leadership attitudes in the day-to-day challenges that come up in our lives?
Absolutely, great question. And one of the best ways is to become an effective role model, because all the communication research says that people pay attention to about 80% of the messages communicated. 80% is from nonverbal information, and only about 20% is from the words. And so I really have to pay attention to how can I be a loving, peaceful presence with my child, with my spouse, with my coworkers, in a way that engages people and respects people and listens to people. So it's, again, oftentimes where secular leadership, I think, misses the boat is leaders will pick up a book or they'll go to a training and they'll say, these are the words that you say, blah, 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 and that's what you do to be an effective leader.
Right.
And that's not really right, because it misses the whole piece about, it's not just the words that I say, but how do I really carry peaceful presence? And many of us who have been around, vowed religious people have had that. So many Catholics can think of a priest or a nun or a brother or a sister who really kind of embody peace in a really phenomenal way, and it kind of fills the room when they walk in. And that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for when I train Catholic servant leaders, is to really pay attention to our presence so much more than it's not only about the words that we say. And
I think that as leaders, I know that every great supervisor or boss that I've ever had are the ones who could actually step in and do my job if I were gone, that, whether I was the receptionist or the low man on the totem pole, they know sort of the reality of every job that they supervise, and they can really kind of feel I don't know if an empathy is the right word or what it is.
Absolutely, yes. I would absolutely say empathy, that good, effective Catholic servant leaders can empathize with a person and really, literally, like you said, step into their shoes at times if they need to do the duty, to do the task. The same when I do family therapy with people, the most effective parents that I see, particularly around teenagers, are the parents who can remember